What is going on, everybody? I am back. I hope this video turns out okay. I'm trying some new camera angle stuff and everything, so hopefully it comes out okay. If it doesn't, just let me know, and I guess too bad. Making this video to discuss, just want to talk about the Russell Wilson, I guess, news that came out today about him possibly, or saying that, or the rumor that he asked for John and Pete to be fired, and then his response to it as well. Obviously, I'll be honest, as a Seahawks fan, just if you want to get my quick opinion of it and get out of the video, I think it's a nothing burger. I really do. I'm not concerned about it. It doesn't, I kind of felt like that's already what happened. So it doesn't change any of my opinions on anybody in this situation, essentially. Yeah, it's pretty much, what we thought just kind of confirmed. So the fact that it was like some bombshell kind of surprised me. But anyways, report came out from The Athletic on Friday morning, essentially saying that Russell Wilson went to Seahawks ownership and asked for Pete Carroll and John Schneider to be fired. Russell Wilson did go on Twitter and said that wasn't true. Pete's been like a father to him in his career, and John meant a lot to him as well, having drafted him and everything. So just going to give my thoughts on it real quick. Before I do, please hit that sub button, turn on the notifications for more Seahawks, Mariners news, NFL, MLB news in general. Talk about it. We do live streams, everything. So if you want to talk sports, join the conversation. Like I said, I think it's kind of a nothing burger. You've had some people like Benjamin Albright, covers the Broncos, saying that they tried to trade Russ a couple times. So yeah, Russ went and had discussions with ownership about wanting to, maybe go a different direction. Listen, my honest opinion of it, and I guess Sean Payton was one of the guys that Russ wanted in Seattle. Russ has a right to do that. I don't necessarily agree with it. I don't think Russ is in the right. If you watch my other videos, it's pretty clear I've defended Pete Carroll and John Schneider. I think Seattle made the right move when it was all said and done to trade Russell Wilson. And the bottom line is this relationship needed to end, regardless of who said what, regardless of which direction, whatever side you're on it, if there is a side. It was time for this relationship to come to an end. So I think that's something we can all agree on with this, is that no matter what, it was time to cut ties and kind of start over from the Seahawks perspective, and probably from Russ's too. Now, so far it has not worked out well for Russell Wilson. So obviously as a Seahawks fan, I'm biased there, and I'm happy that so far it has worked out in the Seahawks' advantage. But it was definitely time for that relationship to split. I don't know if there's a lot of truth behind the fact that they were, wanting, how much they really wanted to trade Russ. I know there were some reports that they were willing to listen to the number one pick from Cleveland in 2017. They liked Josh Allen. I know they liked Patrick Mahomes in that draft. I don't know how much of that, to be honest, is common practice in front offices. And, how much of that is, now, do I think the Chiefs are looking at quarterbacks? No. But, I think Seattle saw some guys they really liked and were out looking for them and kind of, dangled Russ a little bit. And that's fine. Like I said, and Russ has a right to go to ownership. I'm not a big believer in players having a ton of say. I don't like in the NBA how it seems like some of the superstars control the organizations, but they certainly have a right to express concern and whatnot, and Russ has the right to do that, and he did that. And the Seahawks have the right to say, listen, we trust in Pete and John's leadership, and end up making the decision to trade Russell Wilson. I don't think, while I do believe that Russ did go to ownership and do this, I don't think that that's just made up out of the blue. I expect Russ to defend his side, and I do think he looked up to Pete Carroll. I don't think he hates Pete Carroll as a human being. I really don't. I don't think Russell Wilson does. I think that he thought they needed an offense that was more open, more dynamic in his eyes, and tailored to him, that was centered solely around him. Now, and I think the Seahawks did try to do that, honestly. And I don't think Russ is a guy that can carry an offense single-handedly like a Mahomes can, and like some other guys, maybe Aaron Rodgers a few years ago in his prime can. So I think the Seahawks, like I said, made the right decision, but I do think that Russ wanted that to happen. And felt that moving on from Pete and John would be the best way for that to happen in Seattle. And like I said, I've said this 15 times now, but he has a right to think that. I think he's wrong, but he has a right to do that, express that. And like I said, I don't think it means that he hates Pete and John, just that he felt that the best move for him in his career and to take the team and himself to the next level was to go a different direction. Regardless of who's right or who's wrong in that debate, I'm not necessarily here to have a Pete Carroll versus Sean Payton debate or anything like that. I've defended Pete Carroll. You can watch other videos where I talk about why I think Pete is a fantastic coach. I don't think he's stuck in some old ways. This was a very pass-heavy team with Geno Smith at quarterback. I think there were some things with Russ, had some struggles with third downs, with reading certain defenses, with beating certain schemes like the cover two, and there were just issues there. And then with Russ and his agent Mark Rodgers really kind of forcing the issue, I think Pete and John just finally had enough and decided to move on from Russ, when it was all said and done, which I think was the right decision for the Seattle Seahawks. I think Russ was better off in Seattle, but Russ has a right to want what he wants out of this and to express that. So in terms of any ill will, I don't. I just was I happy Seattle beat Denver last year? Absolutely. That was sweet. That was sweet to beat the Broncos last season. It was sweet to watch Denver struggle. Seattle had their first round pick, of course. That would be sweet. And there is some vindication with the Seahawks making the playoffs and Denver struggle. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, oh, it was nothing. Of course it did. But that season's done. The draft picks are done from the pick. After this draft, there's nothing else coming Seattle's way from Denver in the Russell Wilson trade. Sorry, I kicked my camera there. So there's no ill will I have towards Russ. I think he's the best quarterback in franchise history. I think he will be in the Ring of Honor eventually once the dust settles from all of this. He helped and was an integral part of the first Super Bowl championship, first championship that I ever experienced as a fan for any of my teams. So and listen, if you want to be honest, he was really bad last year and helped Seattle get great picks out of the trade. So it's hard to really know that, joking aside, I don't have any ill will towards Russ. He has a right to talk to ownership about that. And in turn, they have every right to decide that Pete and John are what's best for the organization and to move on. So that's kind of my take on it. I don't think it means anything. This doesn't change anything. Russ is already gone. He's in Denver. As far as any headaches from it, I hate to say Denver and their media can worry about that. Seattle's focus is on the draft right now and free agency and what they need to do, with those with issues or whatever you want to call it. Those are their issues they need to be focusing on. So yeah, that's it. I know not much substance to this video, but just want to get on and address that a little bit. It was kind of a big thing that came out this morning. Saw on Twitter, I saw Pete fired trending. I thought Seattle fired Pete and John, because I saw it trending on Twitter. I was like, wait, what? And people were, responding to it, talking. I'm like, wait, no, that didn't happen. So it threw me off a little bit. But yeah, like I said, hit that sub button. If you are a Seahawks fan, Mariners fan, baseball season starting up. We have the first spring training game today. I'm going to be doing some live streams in the regular season. Definitely opening day. Probably not ending the spring training, just kind of boring. But yeah, get ready for baseball season, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.